Hello, this is Ruth Ann Angus, the director of Yes We Can Peacebuilders in Morro Bay, California. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about International Peace Day. Now in 2001, I took a trip back to New York City, where I was originally from. I lived in Greenwich Village, particularly during the 1960s, where it was the era of folk songs, peace marches, protest marches, civil rights marches, and I took part in all of that. And in 2001, it was September, and I spent a bit of time in New York and then returned to celebrate with my mother on her 90th birthday. My mother was living in a nursing home in San Luis Obispo, California. September 11th, 2001 occurred 2 days after I returned. Two planes drove into the two buildings of the World Trade Center. I remember thinking that had I been living in New York City, what I would have been going through. And I also thought about how maybe fortunate I was to have been able to leave prior to that incident. But I wept over all the loss of life, like everyone else did. I went to visit my mom in the nursing home to celebrate her birthday, and she looked up at me and she said, "I think I'm done. I'm 90. I think it's time." I said, "Well, that's okay. If it's time for you, that's okay." But she said, "But I'm worried. What will happen to you? What's going to happen?" I said, "I can't predict what's going to happen. I don't know. We will take one day at a time." Well, 10 days later, my mother did pass away at 3 o'clock in the morning on September 21st, 2001. At the time, I didn't know it was International Peace Day. I remember hearing about it often on the news, but I didn't take much notice. It was something I know was celebrated by the United Nations. In 2016, I became disturbed about some comments that I saw coming up on the local social media sites. It was an election year, as you remember, a rather contentious election year. And we were also having a local election, and many times our local elections also were rather contentious. That year was no different. And I began to think, what can I do that I can help? You know, often people say, "I'm only one person, what can I do?" But one person can do quite a lot if they put their mind to it. I decided to look for something that could help me deal with the problems I saw going on in my community. I was a journalist. I wrote for the local newspapers. I was going to do my Thanksgiving article, and I didn't know what I wanted to say. I knew I wasn't going to write about turkeys this year. I decided to do an article entitled "There But for Fortune," based on the folk song by Phil Oakes, a folk singer during the 1960s. Because really, if you think about it, there but for fortune, go you or I. And then I began a search to find some help, maybe an organization, a peace organization, that could help me do something to help my community be more compassionate, be kinder. Our homeless population was what was being picked on at that time. We had had an influx of homeless. I think something in the economy was probably not going well at that time. People were losing their homes and losing their jobs. People were living in their cars, not just on the ground. And we decided that we needed to do something to help these people. But those comments that were showing up on social media disturbed me. Sometimes they would say, "Why don't we just put them on a bus and take them somewhere else?" So I searched, and I came upon a site called Campaign Nonviolence. That's hosted by pacebene.org. And I met through that site international peace activist Father John Deere, who was heading up a new project called the Nonviolent Cities Project. Now I'm going to speak about that in another video for another day this week. But I signed Morro Bay up. I thought that's just what we needed. We needed to learn to be nonviolent, because the comments were very violent. I don't mean direct violence, physical violence. I mean that insidious type of violence that we all suffer with to some extent. Well, I also learned about International Peace Day. Today, September 21st, 2020, is International Peace Day once again. And it's established by the United Nations. It was established in 1981. This year, the United Nations is 75 years old. The United Nations came about after the end of World War II. And each year they have done, since 1981, an International Peace Day based around a theme. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what this is and what they have to say about International Peace Day 2020. Okay, so the United Nations establishes a theme every year for this day, and this year's theme is 2020, Shaping Peace Together. This year, it has been clearer than ever that we are not each other's enemies. Rather, our common enemy is a tireless virus that threatens our health, security, and our very way of life. COVID-19 has thrown our world into turmoil and forcibly reminded us that what happens in one part of the planet can impact people everywhere. In March, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres called on all warring parties to lay down their weapons and focus on the battle against this unprecedented global pandemic. While the message is intended for armed parties, solidarity and cooperation across borders, sectors, and generations are also needed to win this new fight against the worst public crisis of our time. For the United Nations, 2020 was already meant to be a year of listening and learning. To mark its 75th anniversary, the UN has invited millions of people worldwide to join something called UN 75, the largest and furthest reaching global conversation on building the peaceful and prosperous future that we all want. As we struggle to defeat COVID-19, your voice is more important than ever. In these difficult times of physical distancing, this International Day of Peace will be dedicated to fostering dialogue and collecting ideas. The world is invited to unite and share thoughts on how to weather this storm, how to heal our planet and change it for the better. Even though we may not be able to stand together, we can dream together. The 2020 theme for International Peace Day, Shaping Peace Together. We ask you to celebrate the day by spreading compassion, kindness, and hope in the face of this pandemic. Stand together with the UN against attempts to use the virus to promote discrimination or hatred. Join us so that we can shape peace together. You can do this by going onto the website un.org and looking for the UN 75 section, where you will be able to voice your comments and how you think peace should be shaped for our world today. I hope that you will enjoy International Peace Day and take it to heart. We thank you so much. You can see more about what Yes We Can Peacebuilders is at yeswecanpeacebuilders.org. And you can learn more about campaign nonviolence at paceebene.org. Thank you so much.